Apollo 3 will be a product. It will be a mature, early product, but still a product. I would argue the industry today is essentially all prototypes.
I think the last time we chatted, you had raised a lot of money and now you're spending a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a good drummer.
Tell me what you're doing. Apollo 2, Apollo 3, not announced, but kind of implied. Robot park, and not just one, but robot parks all over the world. What's going on?
Yeah, so we're scaling up now. The robot park is really the embodiment of a dream we've had for a long time. So when we first started, I would go get beers with my co-founder, Nick, and sort of dream up this idea of robots building robots on the Colorado River. And I called it Willy Wonka's Robot Factory. It was kind of the dream. And we said we would have
I want a golden ticket.
yeah, you've got one. Come on and come see it. No, but just like we have just like we have a factory building robots, we also have a data factory as well. And it just so happens that when you see a lot of robots doing different activities in a confined environment, it's a pretty cool place to come visit as well. So there's a dream long term about making it more accessible to the public to come see it. But we've had Apollo 2 since February of last year. So I don't know that I would wait another 18 months to launch a robot again, because I've gotten a lot of questions about Apollo 2 over the last year. But we wanted to make sure that we actually had it scaled up enough and really performing enough before we started to show it off. And so that's what you'll see over the coming months and the rest of this year is kind of the results of the early work that we've done on Apollo 2. Because we've had it since February of last year, that was really the beginning of our work with Google DeepMind. We've just learned a ton about what it takes to build a state-of-the-art AI-powered humanoid robot, how to make it reliable and how to make it easy to service and support and scale and build many of them and so all of those lessons are now going into the next version of Apollo, which will really be the product. So you can think of Apollo 2 as really a prototype for scaled pilots and data collection. And the next version of Apollo will really be the product that will scale to the market.
And you're doing both a bipedal and wheeled version. And I think that makes a ton of sense. A lot of the people that I've chatted with have said, hey, our industrial customers or logistics customers are saying, we want wheels. We want that stability. We want that longevity, battery life, a bunch of other things like that. Is that what's going on there? And if so, what's the bipedal version for?
Yeah, so I still think that the bipedal humanoid has the highest ceiling in terms of what it can do. So it has the broadest workspace of that it can perform inside of. But there's a challenge with bipeds in that they can fall over. So when you start to think about really scaling these systems into the tens of thousands or millions or billions, depending on which entrepreneur is talking about it, there's real challenges that we need to solve and make sure that we get right in order for bipeds to be successful. And so we're really focused on how to solve safety and how to be smart about the ways we solve safety for bipedal humanoid robots. And there's many applications that don't require legs. So in many things where wheels will just be superior than legs. So if you're transporting goods and you're going a long distance, humans like to use wheels for many of those applications. And then we can get a longer battery life as well. So what we believe is we want to build general purpose robots. And the view for Apollo was that having both wheels and legs, we get the best of both worlds. We can scale data collection on either of those. We can get big fleets of wheeled systems out to pave the way for the bipedal systems as they mature and come online. And so we're actually piloting in both cases today with both wheels and legs. And there's different applications for both. I think in manufacturing and logistics, you're going to see a lot of wheels, especially early on. But then as you start to look towards future markets, I think that's when the bipeds will start to really shine.
Future markets, that's interesting. Homes obviously often have stairs, other non-traditional spaces, maybe even offices. I'm not totally sure about that. In some cases, there's usually an elevator. So that's interesting to see. The data is critical, obviously. There's no one way to attack the humanoid space. The data is critical. That's why you're building out the park, the data park, the robot park. 90,000 square feet, I believe you mentioned, and there's others around the globe that are planned or coming online. How many robots we have in there learning, training, doing things?
We haven't released the specific numbers of the Apollo 2s, but lots of robots. We've learned a lot of lessons about scaling up even just a prototype like Apollo 2. So all of those lessons are sort of the backbone of what we're doing with the next version with Apollo 3.
Cool. Interesting. Talk about it's interesting that you had Apollo 2, but you didn't really talk about it. Just kind of a quiet website update, and boom, there was Apollo 2, and a few people noticed, right? And it's also interesting that you're honest. Look, you're not going to deploy 10,000 Apollo 2s in a manufacturing facility. Pretty much every humanoid, I'm thinking I'm correct in saying that is essentially a prototype, even if it's shipping, even if it's in doing work today. None of them are what you would consider, hey, boom, done, replaces a human or 80% or 110% of what a human might do. Apollo 3, what do you expect it to be able to do?
Apollo 3 will be a product. It will be a mature, early product, but still a product. I would argue the industry today is essentially all prototypes. I do think there's a few early products that are now we're now seeing enter the scene, but that's after years of iteration on these platforms. So Apollo 3 will just be much better. It's much more scalable, much more
Mhm.
focused on the bomb cost, a lot of work on the end effectors and the sensor stack on the robot. How we solve safety is going to be unique on Apollo 3. So things like safe perception are really important to us.
Mhm.
But it'll
Mhm.
just be a pretty significant step forward in terms of what we're doing. An order of magnitude more resources and team than any of the robots that we've ever built in the past. Kind of just taking everything we've learned and putting it into building the product that we've always wanted to build.
Cool. Talk about Google DeepMind a little bit. We've already talked about the data a little bit. You have a partnership there. You've been working on it for some time, and they're helping you. You're helping them. You're feeding them data. They're getting better. Will some of that potentially go to competitors if Google DeepMind gets more and more insight, data, and gets better and better?
Yeah, so we've had a great partnership with Google DeepMind. They've been both investor and a collaborator with us for approaching 2 years now. It's hard to believe that that much time has that has happened. We've learned a lot together, I think, on both sides. And really, the goal of the partnership and the collaboration was to push forward the state of the art. What does an AI powered humanoid look like, and how do we advance state of the art on both the hardware and software side? And then how do we think about things like safety, doing this responsibly to get this out into the world in a big way? So lots of lessons learned. Google's been honest with us from the very beginning about their ambitions to build the Android for robotics. And so that will mean their model will go to many different partners. But we have this deep collaboration with Google where we've been in the trenches for several years of building and advancing Gemini. And so we like to think we have a special relationship, and we'll see how that evolves here in the coming months and years ahead.
Well, if what they do in robotics is anything like what they've managed to achieve in smartphones, that's a pretty exciting opportunity because almost everybody is trying to solve the whole widget themselves. I mean, so many people are trying to build all the hardware and all the software, the AI levels. And I can't argue that it's a bad strategy to have a super large, super successful, super smart, and super motivated global giant helping you to do that and taking some of the product development burden off your hands.
Yeah, I mean, our view is we've always been very ambitious about what we want to achieve. We think we have an opportunity to build one of the biggest companies in the world. But we've been in the game long enough that we've been humbled by the challenge many times. And so we're pragmatic about how to get there. And so what that means is we want to work with the best minds in the world, and we want to collaborate to advance state of the art. And we found that in Google. We have some of the best researchers in the world, and we're also mission aligned in ensuring that this is all a positive thing for the species, for humans. And we've been collaborating very well together for a couple years now. And I'll be excited to show off where all that work has led.
Excellent. Maybe last thing, and this isn't specifically about your announcements today, but we do see increased emphasis on geopolitics in and around robotics and in and around humanoids. One of the aspects of that is potentially vertical integration and sourcing. And I saw as one of the elements of your announcement today was actuators. You're using your own actuators, building your own actuators, and you patent them in multiple ways. And you're pretty proud of what you've been able to accomplish in your actuators, which is a huge, that's what, half the cost of a robot or something, or in and around there, half the component cost at least. You mentioned BOM costs earlier as Apollo 3 is critical. Are you vertically integrating in other ways as well? And are you able to kind of control and maybe even nationally source your required components?
Yeah, I think you're going to hear more and more conversations about this. My view is that modern robotics is the space race of our time. And so the best minds across the globe are all going to be competing and working on this to really push forward the field, because whoever wins this, I think will have be a big part of the future, both for national competitiveness and national security in the future. And so all of the big powers are going to be heavily invested in this. And here in the US, we need to make sure that we're playing an important role. And we need things like a national robotics strategy, and we need to build up the supply chains that are going to be necessary to deliver millions of robots in the future. This is something that I've been focused on since I was in graduate school. My view was no one makes robots in the US. Like, certainly that's going to be a problem. And it's been funny now as the conversation has evolved, because now everyone's talking about actuators. My co-founder, Nick, his PhD was in advanced actuation for these kind of robots. And so at Apptronik, we've built nearly 80 iterations of electric actuators, all sorts of different variants of technologies, rotaries, linears, liquid cooled, quasi-direct drive, series elastic, tendon driven, you name it. We've probably tried it over the years and have built a variety of different robots out of that, really learning from first principles what's required, because we viewed actuation as so important. So for the people that are worried that we don't make actuators in the US, I think we have one of the best actuation teams in the world right here in Austin, Texas. And I think my co-founder, Nick, is probably one of the best actuation experts in the world as well, one of the most experienced, certainly. So as part of this space race, a supply chain is going to be really important. And we think that Texas is going to play a critical role in helping to build a supply chain here for North America. And you'll see more announcements later this year about us really putting our money where our mouth is and really making some concerted efforts to build more of that supply chain here domestically and locally, so that we can deliver on the promise for robots here in the US overall. So yes, vertical integration is very important. And I think vertical integration is something that we'll earn more over time. So as the company matures more and more, we can be smarter about which battles to pick, and then ultimately control more of our destiny as we move.
Jeff, thanks so much for this time.
Awesome.